because I never saw it from that perspective.
And that's the way I've always thought of it. I always thought of it as being, if you don't forgive, then a natural consequence of that is it is not forgiven. Or retained.
Yeah, but to retain, the other way that I think of it is that you retain it in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you fail to refuse others, you retain it in yourself.
But where's your big B? Where's your big B?
Then, of course, Karen, I don't know if I told you this. I was doing Bible study, and Brad and Adam and David were there. But you know which one I'm going to say. So there's a place in the Gospel of Thomas where, I mean, there are some really bizarre. Hey, sweetie.
It's so.
It's like putting your feet
For me,
on the
it's
back
okay.
of, but it's like putting your feet on the back of a pew.
True.
It's just kind of, you know.
Yes, that's not
Oh wait,
so great.
that is putting your feet on the back of a pew.
Sacrilegious.
The pause.
So there's a bunch of these just really bizarre sayings, but it's hard to know, are they bizarre because they're bizarre, or are they bizarre because we haven't heard them for our whole lives, and they haven't been talked about for millennia. Because some of the stuff that we do look at, it's impossible for us to look at with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there was this one that said something about, you know, in order to follow me, or I don't remember what the lead-in was, but pretty much the behavior is until you take off your clothes and tread on them like children.
Oh, okay. Probably.
Take off your clothes and tread on them like children. Then you'll be a follower of me. And
Where's that from?
this is the Gospel of Thomas. We're studying the Gospel of Thomas.
I was going to say, because I never read that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like I said, it's a really bizarre verse anyway.
Yes.
Is that you have to take off your clothes. But my mind, because the direct object.
Well, they didn't use the word like, I don't think.
Huh?
I don't think they used the word like in the sentence.
Take off your clothes.
Chose like children and tread on them.
Yeah.
Like children and tread on them. That's what
No,
where you
it
got.
was take off your clothes and tread on them.
So you're talking about giving back the property?
No, but you were, if I'm remembering correctly, because this was 3 weeks ago, because of the way the sentence was constructed.
No, but the reason I'm saying it couldn't have been take off your clothes like children and tread on them. It couldn't have been, because that wouldn't have created the grammatical pattern. How much longer we got, Brad? Because I can just.
Yeah, I think we're in the start. We're street.
So anyway, because the direct object
But not tread on them.
of the preposition on grammatically was children.
Right.
Then my
Treading on
mind
children.
went to tread on children, tread on them like children, tread on them as the same way we tread on children. And then the revelation for me was, oh, I guess it probably meant tread on them, you know, as children do, you know, treading on them. And everybody else in the group was like, well, yeah, I mean, I was saying, you know, what bizarre, and seriously, they're all looking at me, I was just, you know, kind of like, oh, whoops.
That's another case where as and like shouldn't be confused with each other.
Huh?
Where as and like shouldn't be confused.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway, okay, so let's start with prayer. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Gracious God, give you thanks for these servants who are willing to, week after week, give of themselves, give their time and efforts, but also just give all the energy that it takes to be patient and serve those who are the most challenged in the most difficult situations in our community. We ask that you give us patience and insight, and when it becomes burdensome, that we trust we can can absolutely cast those burdens at your feet. Because we too are resurrected in Christ's name. We pray this in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord.
Amen.
So, so this came out of the request, from that one day when we had a number of difficult behaviors. Okay. Person first, it's not a difficult person, it's a difficult behavior. And, but a series of them that take a lot of energy. And the first thing is just acknowledge, not everybody takes the same amount of energy. Some people are really easy. Some people actually feed you by coming in and just, giving energy. But there are those that just take a lot of energy, and especially if they take a lot of energy every time you encounter them. It is work. It is work. The work of the food pantry is primarily social. It's the work of interacting. Yes, obviously there's a work of food distribution, but you could have, food distribution vending machines if it weren't about people need people. And Karen has made this point a number of times that people need to tell their story, and especially at a time like this where people are isolated, they need to tell their story, which means they need somebody to listen to their story and to give them attention, not just be there, but give them attention for their story, and that takes a lot of work. And then those that are challenging or repeat behaviors that are just hard for you to take personally or hard for everybody to take more out of you. One of the things that's important to recognize is what are behaviors that you respond to especially. Anybody who's been through any of my classes knows that I will say this, and I'm going to ask you to repeat this. It's that we all have biases. So please repeat, we all have biases. Say it again, we all have biases. We all have biases. We do. I mean, we can't not. The important piece is to recognize our biases so that we can try to mitigate them. There is nobody that treats everybody the same way, and we categorize people differently. Sometimes its stature reminds us of somebody else who has that stature, or if we've had a series of bad experiences with people that we consider representative of a particular group, or sometimes it's the person's name. If you were tortured by somebody named Karen when you were growing up, that name is going to be uncomfortable for you. So it's recognizing what are the things that I react to, especially negatively, and how do I want to handle that? How do I want to, you are not 6 feet away from Karen. She's got a mask on. Yeah. A lot of us know about this, but race is a big one. We are all white in this room. We are all, I don't know. There may well be various ethnicities that are non-visible, but the reality is that in 2020, fair skin, especially in North America, well, in the North in general, comes with privileges. It's not because we caused it. It's not because we demanded it. It's not because we feel entitled necessarily. It just is. Comes with certain privileges. And we cannot know as white people what it is like to not have that privilege because we can only have the experience we have. We can listen, we can open our hearts, and the most important thing is we can refuse to defend when somebody is angry about the fact that their skin color or their first language has caused discrimination against them. We can say, I'm not going to defend the behavior that created that situation. I'm just going to receive that that is true for them. And then certainly endeavor to not perpetuate any behaviors that burden others. Another is sex. Sex and gender are not always clearly delineated categories, but I'm going to say sex in the sense that men cannot know the many ways that women are, in some cases, out and out oppressed, but are put down, are injured because we are women. You just can't know unless you listen and you do everything you can to try to avoid it. And I'm sure you've heard the term microaggressions, where microaggressions are those little things that happen every day that are not big overt, I'm getting arrested or I'm getting hauled before into court, or I'm being denied entry somewhere. Sometimes they are, but microaggressions are those little things that happen every day. So sex is another one. Gender identity, and this is why I separated gender. Gender identity is another one, and most of us react to behaviors that we associate with masculine and behaviors that we associate with feminine a lot more than we do with gender identity. So most of us don't sit around worrying about other people's sex lives, but if we consider certain behaviors effeminate on a man and we react negatively to that, we associate it as a gender identity thing. Does that make sense? Okay. So all these things. Anybody know some of your own that you're willing to share? You don't have to if you're not willing to share. Yeah.
I would have a hard time with someone who is drugged. I have no experience with drugs. I wasn't raised in a time when we didn't even have marijuana around.
Okay.
I just have no experience.
So anybody who is drugged or appears drugged is for you like.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what to do.
Okay. And by the way, there are behaviors that we consider choice behaviors that may or may not be someone's choice, but we consider them choice behaviors that we react to more strongly. So I don't get to choose whether or not I'm a white woman, but the perception is that I get to choose whether or not I use drugs. Again, not always true, but choice behaviors we tend to be a lot more resistant to receiving. Any others? I have had to intentionally try to reshape the way I encounter elderly people in public. Because I found myself, especially I would go on cruises with my parents, and I would find myself just being really frustrated, like, get out of the way. And responding to some other things that were about me, not about the elderly people. So that's specifically in public and never the ones that I know, but I knew that I had to do that. Okay, in the U.S., of course, a lot of anybody females who veil, or men whose skin coloring makes them look Middle Eastern, or those who wear turbans, which, by the way, are seldom Muslim. Usually those are other religions, but anyway, a lot of us have tons responses to. Okay, so one of it is know what are those things. The ones that we're going to talk about today are behaviors around drugs and mental illness. So I wanted to, because Karen used the word specifically tweaker, I wanted to talk about some of the language, slang, drug language, street language, urban language, whatever. Of course, it changes over time. It varies by community. Who's allowed to use what words and what those words mean is going to vary over time. The word tweaker specifically means somebody who's on methamphetamine or somebody who is a regular user. I mean, oh, and by the way, not everybody knows this, but there are lots of people who use drugs recreationally who are not drug abusers. Well, that's a judgment call. Who are not regular users of that drug, who are not addicts, whose lives are not defined by that drug use. And so that's one thing that not everybody realizes is that a recreational use of a drug does not an addict make.
When I use the word tweaker,
Uh-huh.
to me it's more like a gesture type thing.
Uh-huh.
You can see that they're either high to the point, not, lethargic,
Uh-huh.
but they're high and they're just kind of speeding
Right.
along. Or like they're more agitated, which means they're probably not high, they're probably withdrawn.
Yeah, there are a number of things that can create that situation, but that's where the term.
That's why where I use the word tweaker. They're on edge.
Right.
And one more little thing might send them over the edge.
And that often is the result of methamphetamine use. It can also be the result of bipolar
Oh, yeah.
bipolar highs, so manic behavior, and there are some other illnesses that can. But the people that you see come in that are so skinny, you're like, I don't even know how you stand up. There's this kind of constant movement going around.
Am I just writing it right, Adam? Is that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you can see it because they're not going to stop talking or they're not going to stop moving, whatever. Often sores, the picking at themselves, so there's a lot of sores. And it's just that is often the result of. Sometimes it's heroin or combination of heroin and methamphetamine, but often methamphetamine use. But anyway, but what I'm saying is that tweaker, the street definition is currently pretty much methamphetamine user. But yeah, there is that tension. And I think something that may well be helpful for you, I don't know if any of you already use it. This is Brad going to be our first visual.
Yep, I'm calling it up right now.
There's a website, Urban Dictionary. Urban Dictionary is a crowdsourced, meaning contributed to by anybody who contributes to it. That
I use Urban Dictionary a lot.
oh, okay. So could you pull up my Urban Dictionary?
Hang on. The trouble is the screen is up there. It's a little hard for me to get to.
But yeah, and so you're not going to agree to all these definitions. One of the things that Urban Dictionary does is there are definitions that people vote on, which is the most valuable definition. So you can see which definition most people like, and it's great for street language that's unfamiliar. The drug page, when I was preparing for this, the drug page is like, there were a whole bunch of things that I had no idea. And some language that I had known the name of a band or something like that I had no idea how to drug reference. Most drugs have multiple names, but people who regularly use drugs can be known to have a certain set of behaviors. We'll get that.
1 second, sorry.
We'll get that when we get it. Something that, and we'll talk about mental illnesses in a sec, something that is becoming more and more recognized is that very few people have a single diagnosis. That most people with drug addiction have some other mental illness, and often people with mental illness have the highest percentage of substance abuse. It's not that always one occurs with another. Also, a number of substances. There are some people who will abuse any substance they can get a hold of. There are some people who have one substance. There are substances that sort of go together. And so somebody will give up, like if you give up, I've been told, if you give up cocaine, you're more inclined to become a gambler than somebody who gives up alcohol. That apparently whatever chemicals, amount of dopamine that triggers in your brain, the cocaine is similar to gambling, more so than alcohol is to gambling. And so there are some that they go together. If somebody gives up one and uses the other, it's called a cross addiction. But there are a whole lot of people who have multiple diagnoses, or you know, multiple uses. So it's not always easy to tell. Also, because street drugs, do not have any standards. I mean, other than by reputation. There are drugs that are mixed better than others. There are drugs that are cleaner than others. And so people end up with drugs that are either a lower quality or mixed in a way that are more damaging. Also, the duration that you are on any drug. Besides, I mean, we all know that alcohol will affect your liver, but they can do brain scans of what parts of your brain still function after 5 years of use, a particular use, 10 years of a particular use. And what happens is your brain, you lose functionality in these patches in your brain. Now, some of those places your brain can come up with different ways to process. Some of them you can't. Some of them, those pathways will heal if you stop using the substance. Some of them, they won't. And if your brain's not functioning, it's not functioning. I mean, I refer to it as broken brain. But, you know, if it's broken, it's broken. And that's why I say choice language is really dangerous, because then you don't have as many choices as somebody for whom it's broken. So can you zoom this just a little bit, Brad?
Okay, let's try.
So let's see, let's see, how many of these have I not heard? Battery head I've not heard. Scalavet, flippin' chickens.
Flippin' chicken,
I don't. So these are the ones I haven't heard.
I flip chicken.
Flakes, OTT, hot, mahout, creepy. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of them here. And so if you hear like Green Day, the band, I have no idea. So, you know, go check it out if there's something like, what are you talking about? We could spend days looking at these. Is there any particular one that you would like to focus on? We can do 3 right now.
Ice.
Ice? Really? You don't know ice?
No, I do.
Oh, okay.
We don't use that term here, do we?
We don't use ICE as much as we used to, but I think that has to do with immigration. Okay, click on ICE.
Oh, I can't, Karen, I can't see.
Oh, I thought you saw it. I don't see it there. So ICE is cocaine usually, sometimes methamphetamine, powdered in the powder form, both of which are snorted. But because it also means immigration and customs enforcement.
Right.
Oh, that's true.
I don't know if people are using it as much anymore.
All right, let's pick Hotel California.
Motel California. Brad, click on Motel California, which is 3/4 of the way down on the leftermost column.
Hang on.
I've never heard of that.
Really?
Well,
I mean, other than the song.
Hotel California.
Yeah.
Which was a very bizarre song.
Yeah, but this will make it make some sense.
Well, that, I never care for that
Or
song.
pull the screen, grab it.
Really?
Bring it over here and do it, then put it back.
There, you're right on it.
There you go.
There.
Good job.
Drug rehab.
Really?
Really? Okay.
Hotel California.
Mortel, California is drug rehab, huh?
Yes.
Specifically the kind of drug rehab where it's an inpatient thing.
Inpatient drug rehab, and sometimes it means not the elite drug rehab.
Right.
Right.
Okay, Brad, go back.
Ah, yes. What the heck? I can try for,
Okay, let me let you, I
can try it. I can try it.
I just can't see that far.
Yeah.
Well, and so there's nothing on your own.
Jude on there?
Just turn my phone keyboard.
Right.
That's-
Actually, I was gonna
Okay,
go back over here
Oh,
and
the
see
song
if I
you
can
do?
increase the view
Well,
magnification.
that makes perfect sense.
There's another view.
Yeah, I can't see.
Hey Jude supposedly was written for John Lennon's son, Julian, when his parents were going through divorce.
There it is.
Paul McCartney wrote it for, in honor of Julian Lennon. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds
Well, that's
is LSD, yeah.
Okay, now I gotta get back over there.
Okay, what's the other one? Double,
Okay.
Virtually right there.
These are trendy terms.
they're not necessarily.
Come back
Right.
this way.
So, but we're gonna go back to the list in a second as soon as they can figure it out.
Use full sight visual right
What do you think? What do you think, Corbin?
Okay, gotcha. So, first of all.
Go back. No, just go back. Don't.
I was just gonna maximize for.
Oh, okay.
Except the
Now you can't go back.
interest. Okay. Let's see. Oh, that's that kind of
No, you
maximize.
can't-
That's
you-
that kind of
Now you
maximize.
gotta
Of
do
course.
this thing. Can't-
Escape, right?
You have to-
You can get a Motel California for your Aunt Natalie.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Oh, great.
I keep
Love that.
forgetting this is a Mac and not a PC.
Well, this particular thing doesn't like it.
Is this one that I could use the remote for?
No.
No, unfortunately. So, okay, that's back over there.
It doesn't do anything, it's fine.
Right, well now, unfortunately though, the back button on the browser interface was clipped off, unfortunately.
Yeah, so here, let me just go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
you're trying to use things that unfortunately.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Not
Karen.
familiar with
This is just,
Oh. Looks like the Firefox got,
Karen, this trash.
Oh, okay. All right. So we're not gonna do any more of those. Anyway, Urban Dictionary, very helpful for around street terminology in general, drug terminology. The most important point, I think, is that be aware that while behaviors cluster around certain illnesses and certain drug use, there are so many that can mimic each other. It's like anything else, the same way that you can't diagnose somebody else's disease based on their sniffles. You can't diagnose people's mental health. You can say these, and we'll get to that, the fact that what we deal with are behaviors, not what we think it is. I think it's helpful to learn about these things, learn what it does to your brain, because that affects how you interact with behaviors, but so many of these things mimic each other. It's just important to be aware they exist, they cluster, and also certain people who use certain drugs will often avoid people who use certain other drugs. People who use methamphetamine, by the way, can be up for days on end. What happens to your brain when you go without sleep for days on end?
It
Doesn't
does
reboot?
not function properly.
Doesn't function properly. You don't dream, which means you can't start to hallucinate. It doesn't heal or reboot. It doesn't store your short-term memories and long-term memories. You become more emotionally volatile. You become, just emotionally volatile. you are less able to think rationally, and you can lose the ability to even recognize that you've lost the ability. So it's very, the thing that most of us can relate to is if somebody says to us, calm down, how much does that calm us down?
It works on me great.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's,
Well, and for another person, I think, it would be fine. You tell someone to calm down, that's just gonna agitate them more.
for most people, now, a very low level excitement, pointing out to somebody that they're starting to get excited, or somebody that you have an intimate enough relationship with that they have given you permission to call them on their behaviors. That might be able to calm somebody down. But most people, if you tell them to calm down, that's an offensive thing. They don't calm down. Somebody who's sleep deprived can't. So you combine the fact that methamphetamine causes certain behaviors anyway, it does nasty stuff to your body, but you don't sleep. Combine that with the fact that people who live on the street are chronically sleep deprived. You can't get enough sleeping on the street, and when you do sleep, it's not high quality sleep because you have to stay slightly alert. It's not dissimilar to firefighters who always have to be ready to wake up and function immediately, to soldiers who have to be ready to wake up and function immediately, to other people who work in those professions that we put them on 24-hour shifts where, it's life and death whether or not they can wake up and function immediately. And so you get this long-term sleep deprivation. And it just does all kinds of weird to your ability to think. What's interesting, I'm going to talk about mental illnesses now. Some of the main ones that we're aware of is that most of them have reputations among those who are not acquainted with them that aren't all that applicable. Which mental illness do you most associate with violence?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, schizophrenia is.
One of the lowest, well, not one of the lowest, but on the low end of violence to others. Schizophrenics have a high suicide rate, but violence to others,
I know.
pretty darn low. So schizophrenia we associate with violent behavior very seldom. Actually results in violent behavior. It results in bizarre behavior, but very seldom violent behavior. Schizophrenia, it again does all kinds of weird to your brain. You start to respond to sights and sounds and beliefs that are generated by your brain. This I actually had changed for me at a class that I went to last year, but your brain is generating these realities. I need somebody who is willing to be a volunteer to leave the room and go in the library for a minute.
We can go in the library?
Yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable when you come back, but only for a couple minutes. Tell me when you're in there. Oh wait, you can't because you're not supposed to be able to hear. Okay. So when he comes back, I'm going to ask each of you to choose a voice. One of you just continue. Thank you! One of you just whisper to him. Keep using the hissing sounds, the S's, the Z's, and just keep talking at a really low level, but keep going. I suspect I'll keep
I'll
going.
be the,
Yeah.
I'll be the music.
Okay. You be an angry voice. Angry voice. Not constant yelling, but outbursts of yelling. Something angry. Try not to pick anything that actually is personal about David, but have angry outbursts.
That's not right.
Yeah. Jenny, you be self-balanced voice. Pointing out, you're not right. These people don't like you. Everybody's looking at you like you're crazy, but then you really are crazy. That kind of stuff. Right? When he comes back in, and he'll know he's in an experiment, we're just gonna have a minute or two. And I'm gonna try to have a conversation with him, a rational conversation. Like, you know, on the level of what do you want for dinner kind of level. Okay. David, come in!
I don't know that you can hear it.
Thank you. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions in front of other people. I'll stand 6 feet from you,
Okay.
but I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay?
Okay.
Do you drink coffee? Do you ever drink coffee? Do you drink tea? What's your
Hey, I can't hear you.
hot beverage of choice?
Hot beverage of choice.
Do you have it?
Hot water.
Hot water, really?
Yeah.
Okay. What about your cold beverage of choice?
Get down in front.
The 7-Up.
7-Up. Regular or a diet?
Regular.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to ask you is, do you count how much water you drink every day?
No.
Keep going.
I said I can't hear you.
Okay, you get the idea, right?
Uh-huh.
Do you get the idea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a choice.
Yeah.
And
Your inner voice.
Thank you.
Ah, that's what that was. Like
sometimes
an
it's
inner voice.
manageable, you know, with medication, but sometimes the medications, you know, what do you call it, the side effects of the medication are so unpleasant that people start to stop using them. There are a number of mental illnesses where once people are properly medicated, they feel like they don't need the medication anymore, so they stop taking it. There are a number of psych medications where people will stop using them abruptly because they run out. And they don't have the capacity to or don't refill them. And not all of these are manageable. And try to have, I mean, all I was asking him about is what are hot beverages of choice, and you did pretty well, but if we had gone on, you know, do you want green beans or not? You know, becomes a much more difficult.
So, because, you know, we have couch surfers, we have, you know, some homeless people that are mental. Does the Front Street Clinic, are they able to deal with those things that my meds got stolen, I lost my backpack?
Yes and no. The problem is the intake there's just a long waiting list. So there's a 2-week waiting list in order to be seen by a counselor, and that's a long time. I mean, that was less than a minute that you and I were talking, and so that's a long time. They do deal with it, as does Jamie, but you have to be a client for them to be able to do anything that's quick turnaround. It's still better than nothing.
Does Polaris have stolen?
Polaris House focuses on alcohol and on providing a safe space for people who are identified as alcoholic or alcohol abusers and who are members of.
That's not true.
Okay, well then you tell me, because that's what Hazel told me.
No, I mean, I'm on the board of Claire's House. Claire's House has to handle its clients. You have to have a mental illness to become a member, a club member of Claire's House, but they don't treat people. They're not a treatment facility.
It's just a supportive.
I was getting-
Supportive,
That's what I said, provide a safe space.
Great, the safe space, but they don't focus on alcoholism.
Okay.
They'll take any mental illness in there. They do host AA meetings, but they'll take any mental illness, but they're a supportive, safe space.
So anyway, yeah, it's a resource place, not a treatment. Anyway, it's just be aware. People are dealing with that, and most of them know that people look at them funny. So this will be the theme, no matter what, is discipline yourself. That's why I said know your biases, to not look at them funny. Because they're a brother or sister whose brain functions differently, whose illness is not visible on the outside, and they know. That, and what happens when you have a lifetime of being treated in a particular way? You read every behavior as that, whether or not it has something to do with it.
Well, like, I was gonna say, we're taping this, correct?
We're taping it?
Are we taping?
Brad, are we taping?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I won't use her name,
Okay.
but it's our friend who uses a lot of sugar in her coffee.
Mhm.
I mean, when I first met her, I was downtown working at one of the gift shops, and I would see her walk down the street and out for no reason, just deck somebody. And, you know, I've not seen any of that now, so I think she's getting the care that she needs and medication or whatever.
Currently has a stable living situation and even took direction from me yesterday and interacted, you know.
I know when she first started coming here, she didn't talk to anybody.
I know.
Now she has I can see this person on the street and say, hey, how you doing? You know,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, she's, and again, we'll just be a little careful.
Yeah.
As she's just gotten older, things have changed in her life. I mean,
Oh, well,
her
that's good.
brain chemistry's changed.
Well, that's good.
Because I've known her for, for a year and a half, almost 2 years now. And I didn't know her back in those early days. But I guess she's remarkably changed, besides having a stable living situation.
Oh, yeah.
So, people's
So,
brain
you know,
chemistry
but
changes.
it's just things like that. I mean, you know, we deal with her on a one-to-one basis.
And you gotta take her as she is today. There are other people we interact, people who have come to Bible study and then sometimes, you know, yelling at herself in the bathroom for a half an hour. Which is, by the way, a healthier choice than picking a fight with somebody on the street. So in some cases, the coping mechanisms still seem odd, but the idea is no matter what the behavior is, it is not going to be helpful to that person to either try to teach them a lesson or to, most people, by the way, by the time they get to us, if they could have learned to behave in a way that other people liked, they would have. You know, it's not like if I just teach them manners, they're going to change. We're way beyond that. And so the difference is we have to identify in ourselves, what am I sensitive to, and how do I make sure that I am treating this person respectfully, treating this person, but at the same time, letting them be who they are. Somebody who is schizophrenic and going on about stuff that you're like, yeah, you know what, I'm pretty sure you're not Jesus. Arguing with them, not going to be helpful.
Right.
So you just allow them to be. It doesn't mean you have to buy into their delusion. Don't condescend to their delusion, but also don't argue with them. You know, if they want to be Jesus, they want to be Jesus. That's, you know, whatever. It's like, how do I be as healthy with you today and as respectful with you today as possible? And again, we're all going to have those things to which we are sensitive. Bipolar actually has a fairly high suicide rate. People who are manic, low-level mania is fun, but high-level mania, people, spending sprees, they believe themselves to be they may well be extremely creative, can be a lot of fun to be around, but also can start to have some of that agitated behavior that we associate with amphetamine use. And then the lows are really just devastating. And typically a long line of broken relationships, and not just romantic relationships, but interpersonal relationships, because it's hard for people to interact with them. People with dementia can often have some of the same behaviors, especially a quick trigger. Because if you know you're supposed to know something and you don't know it, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I first wake up, If I'm still half asleep and dreaming, I can just be very upset. Was not the word I was going to use, but very upset that I'm not thinking clearly. And so you end up getting really mad. People with dementia sometimes act out violently without intending to. They can hurt their loved ones, especially if it's related to age, because they can swing without an intention to hurt that person, but because they want to be able to think clearly, and they can't. So you see some of that as well. It's not always obvious. Borderline personality is not always obvious. Sometimes we just think of people as extremely manipulative. Oh, this is another one that's hard for me personally. If I think somebody's being manipulative, and that has somewhat to do with my personal history, but I have no tolerance for manipulative behavior. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who don't have a choice as to whether their default way of interacting with the world is to work it, to manipulate. This is also true of anybody who's lived on the street for any length of time, because you have to. You get everything you can out of any situation because you have to. That's how you survive. It's an absolute survival mechanism. And there are people for whom the being manipulative, it really isn't a choice. And again, it's not like if I teach them not to be manipulative, all of a sudden they're not going to not be manipulative. What you do with that person is you define your own boundaries and say, I choose not to cross this line regardless of what you do, so that I'm not going to be manipulated across the line. I don't have to change you. I just decide where my limits are. But I have to know that if I judge someone to be manipulative, it's just let's just say I have to work really hard. It takes a lot of self-talk for me to be as respectful as I should be. We're seeing people with social anxiety and anxiety disorders are getting a lot more recognized, overlapping a lot with PTSD, which has a lot of cluster behaviors. PTSD is not just for soldiers anymore, but often those who have been sexually assaulted or have had a lot of violence in their life. We're talking about trauma-informed care in the care industry, that people get traumatized. People with PTSD have disrupted sleep, can very often be really anxious about space, can be volatile, can have flashbacks unpredictably, start to identify their triggers. If you see somebody exhibiting behaviors of anxiety, regardless of what the cause is, give them a wide berth. If you know somebody doesn't like somebody standing next to them, stand as far away from them as you can.
Well, right now, we want to stand 6 feet.
Right.
But, there are just some people that cannot have that boundary. And, like yesterday, we had 2 gentlemen that they came in and they sat in the nursery area, right next to each other for a very long time. And no mask, and at what point do we say, separate, we need a mask, we're trying to keep everybody safe, because,
So I will get there. The short answer is, as soon as it makes you uncomfortable, and practice ways of saying things that are non-judgmental but are firm. So because of the type of ministry that I do sometimes, people can get in my space, and I'll say, please step back. Now, there are ways to say, please step back, that sounds accusatory. There are ways to say, please step back, that just sets my boundary. Please step back. when they're here, I say, in order to stay open, I have to have you, blah, blah, blah. I'm not telling you to do something, I'm saying what I need, but that is, in order to stay open, I have to have people stand 6 feet apart. Sorry, you guys, I gotta have you stand 6 feet apart. And so as soon as you are uncomfortable, say it, but practice saying whatever it is that you need to say. Whether it's stand back, please wash your hands, oh, I can't touch you, you know, oh, I'm feeling a little crowded, whatever. All of those things can be said non-judgmentally. If it sounds like an accusation, they're going to respond like they've been accused. Nobody likes to be accused, and we all get defensive. So it's really okay to do it, and it's okay to do it at a pretty low level. And you know what? There are those who are manipulative who will treat you like you're uptight. Lighten up, Karen. You know what? Let them. That's you know, if they want to say lighten up, Brad also knows I react really strongly to people telling me to lighten up.
Karen, lighten up.
Well, I was gonna say, so we had what, about 60 people yesterday? No, maybe 50. We had a lot of masks yesterday, more masks than we had, don't you think?
Yeah.
I think we've got more masks now, so.
Those two guys, were those chairs that close together and they pushed them together?
So yeah, I saw a lot more people with bandanas.
Well, and they wanted to, I don't know, sit and socialize, and, the one gentleman was obviously intoxicated. The other one, I couldn't tell if he didn't seem intoxicated.
Well, which is also, it's a guess, which is why we deal with behaviors, not causes, because whether or not somebody's intoxicated is irrelevant. If they are behaving in a way that, you know, it is not acceptable, it's not acceptable. And then the idea is y'all can talk outside. In here, these are the rules. And that is so that we can stay open. Right now, that is, you know, so that we can stay open. I hate when people say our policy is, because nobody gives a rodents behind what our policy is. If there is a reason for the policy, you know, it's for everyone's safety, in order to be consistent, just to be fair, whatever the, you know, that is a lot more helpful.
I don't think it'll be so much a problem during the summertime, it's not. But, you know, when we were open and people could have coffee and goodies downstairs, we had people stay for a long time.
Right.
And that's, you know, and it was all fine and good. You know, I don't think we'll ever get back to that this year. So we are going to have some way to try and have to find, that's the one thing that I know, you know, when we're dealing with people that are really quite marginalized and on the street, they just want to sit and be able to sit. Because when you're on the street, you can't just sit.
You can't sit and relax. That's the whole thing about, you know, having to stay at ready. You can't sit and relax because it's always possible somebody will come and tell you to move. It's always possible that somebody will come and assault you. Almost everybody who has spent any time on the street has been the victim of crime, at least theft, often violent crime.
Assault, you know.
Yeah, often sexual assault, especially if you're female. And so being able to relax because, you know, somebody might show up at the church and get me to move, but also somebody might come and steal my stuff. Somebody might, you know, depending on where it is, somebody might throw trash on me. Somebody, you know, it's like that you can't relax. And so, yeah, people want to relax. And they want to just be, and they want to be people. And plus, we need community. So it's one of those things, it's like, I can totally understand. And at the same time, this is our COVID-19 mitigation plan so that we can stay open. That's the boundary thing. It's like, I understand where you're coming from. Nevertheless, here's the boundary. which I'll get to that in a sec too. That was my last item too, is I refer to this as the coronavirus upgrade, that all this stuff I've been talking about goes on. You know, the brain dysfunction, the long-term drug use, the very often post-traumatic stress, the having grown up with a lot of trauma. I mean, stories of these people often are just horrendous, the dissociation, whatever, all continues to exist. Plus, coronavirus social distancing, less opportunities for community, higher level of anxiety among many people, requirements for much more specific compliance. And a lot of these people have trouble with compliance. Again, you know, you don't get this far in life if you could have done things in a way that was easier for you. And if you could do things. And so now there's a higher level of compliance required. So during this time, it's even, you know, it's more demanding on people now for some people it gives them a place to focus their anger. But just keep in mind that we have this. Oh, that's another one. I have trouble with people who are illogical in their anger. You know, it's just like A plus B equals C. And I'm like, let's just lay that out here. A plus B, how do we... And the best thing somebody ever said to me is, don't try to reason with a 2-year-old. Now, I don't mean to talk down to or in some ways infantilize, you know, people who have processing issues. But you don't try to reason with somebody who's incapable of reasoning. You don't try to... I make jokes about it, but I don't try to explain to Corbin that the reason he couldn't come to church on Sunday is because he's been disruptive. Because why try to have that conversation? Even if they look to me like a person that I would expect to be able to get that reasoning. There's somebody in town, she doesn't come here, I don't think, but somebody in town who is just so difficult to deal with because there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of outburst, but there's also a lot of demand for assistance that's incongruous. The stuff that she wants done for her is incongruous with the way she's behaving, and it's, you know, maybe 30 seconds you can get compliance. And so it's really, I mean, it's just maddening, and she looks like a person that I would expect to be able to behave differently. But when somebody's 2, it's more obvious. When it's a dog, you know, it's more obvious, but not everybody can comply. So I just want to point out that the coronavirus is making it all harder.
Are other organizations experiencing more, I don't want to say outbursts, but more slight challenges? I mean, I haven't had any challenges.
Uh-huh.
I just recognize that it's there. Has anybody ever felt unsafe? Well, we do have the one restraining, yeah, the restraining order, which is done the end of June. Have you ever felt unsafe?
No, not even with her. Oh, yeah, she did good out a few times.
But you don't feel unsafe? David, have you ever had a feel? I just was wondering if I mean, you talk with other organizations, are they finding that it's becoming?
I'm actually doing an interview with somebody from Rasmussen tomorrow who's talking to faith groups about what we're experiencing, and that's among them. Right now, most organizations are having so much less interaction with people face to face. There's less opportunity to know what's going on. I would imagine that the police and other first responders are more sensitive to that. But the people that I'm most likely to be talking to just aren't having a lot of interaction with people. There are also things that you do to prepare. I mean, I used to walk downtown San Francisco in the Tenderloin in the middle of the night by myself, and I felt unsafe twice, exactly twice. And I was never physically harmed. But
Once. You forgot.
maybe you can remind me about that later.
Yeah, I'll remind you later. There was one time you did get, you were sort of accosted and,
I wasn't hurt
you
physically.
weren't really hurt, but you were accosted.
So anyway, but that's what I'm saying. Still, that's a lot of hours in what seems like they would be dangerous situations. And a lot of it has to do with demeanor, but it also has to do with preparation. That here, you make sure that there are people around. You don't let yourself be alone with groups, individuals or groups that you can't manage. Typically, if you're going to be in danger, it's not in a one-on-one interaction, it's when two people are fighting with each other. Because that becomes a situation that you can get hurt. And that's in my list here. We already talked about don't try to diagnose people, deal with behaviors. But you have to constantly just stay aware. Stay aware. Where are people? Where are people that help me be safe? Because if there are other people in the room, if for some reason I need help from somebody, I want to know where they are. Where are people that I might need to protect? People who work in this industry very often will look around and they will step closer to somebody that they think has the potential to get in trouble. Not because they're judging the person that's going to get in trouble, but by my physical presence, if there's a potential threat, that threat can be dissipated before anything happens. So you watch, what's going on in between people, where are my people, and do I need to step in and help my people? People, especially domestic relationships, those are the most dangerous. This is the most dangerous for police officers, and those are the most dangerous for firefighters and paramedics, because people can get to the point where they just don't care, and so you want to watch what's happening. Don't obviously take a side unless somebody needs protection, in which case I am going to call somebody to protect this person. But to say, I can't have you yelling in here, I need you to come in one at a time, whatever, and anticipate those situations. If somebody in your crew looks like they might need help, ask them. David, you got this? David, let me know, can I help? Because otherwise, you can end up, if you're managing just fine, and you know how this interaction is going, especially if you know that person, and I step in, I can end up creating a difficult situation. Whereas if I just let you know I'm here, the other thing that does is let the other person know that I'm here. Right? Okay, can I help you?
Now, one thing that, well, and we don't know that now, you guys don't know the names, because I'm the one that's checking out the names. And at the beginning, we used to know the names and everything, but, I've always found that it works best if I just keep saying their name. Is that correct?
As long as you're not annoying about it.
Yeah.
Have you ever had one of those customer service situations where somebody uses your name a lot and you're like, okay, I get that you took an A in the calling me Karen class. Could you get an A in the helping me? So as long as you're doing it in a way that is sensible, yeah, it stays personal. Which is the next point that I was going to make, is that if something seems like it's going down over there, if I yell to that person over there, I have humiliated them. I have let everybody else in the room know that it's not a safe space. It's a place where you can get yelled at. And I've escalated everybody's anxiety. So if there's something going on that I need to deal with, go over there. Don't yell at people. If you do know their names and you can use their names, that's very helpful because you're treating them like a person. So, you know, you're actually honoring who they are. But it just cracks me up that when we yell across the room to tell people to calm down. So, you know, again, be sensitive to who you're working with, but also keep an eye out so that if I'm over here going, I need somebody else to be present, but I don't want to make a big production out of it. Now, I can pretty easily say, David, could you come over? But you want to know how to, you know, if I have to call somebody, are they going to be aware? Are they going to respond to me?
Well, I think that the way we've laid it out, by the time they get to the scout room with me, you know, and I've got the name and we can talk about it, I think it's a more pleasant visit.
I think so too, because they've also had opportunities to tell their story a couple times. One of the things I want to mention about that though is try not to block other people's exit.
Yeah.
And try not to allow your safety exit to be blocked. And which sometimes is you know, a little bit of choreography, but you want to be where you know that if you have to run, you can. And or if you have to yell for help, you can. But also know that people who feel cornered can, just like any other animal, can panic. So I like the layout too. I think it's good and I think it's helpful for people. If you need...
On that point, by the way, while we put up all these signs about flow, if somebody wants to leave,
let them go.
Let them go.
Yeah.
You know, all our rules are just, you know, really guidelines.
So the order that I would tell you to be aware of is safety of self, safety of others, not just on your team, but safety of others in your space, and then what I call stewardship, which is just safety of the property, and what is a good use of what are the resources that we have. And go in that order all the time. Stay aware, stay aware, stay aware, stay aware of everybody else. If you need help, let somebody on your team know. If they need to call for help, you know, everybody knows, call 911. That's the thing you get to yell. It's call 911. No matter what, if you feel like you need to call 911, call 911. It is better to cancel a 911 call than it is to not have called.
And then, by the way, they're always happy to come.
Yeah. The other thing I've got on my list is, so you've predicted what's going on, you've stayed aware of what's going on, you've gotten help if you need it. I narrate what I'm doing. If I'm in a situation where somebody's volatile, sensitive, where I'm scared, where, you know, something seems to be going wrong, I narrate what I'm doing. You know, I'm gonna walk over here and get some help from David because I'm feeling nervous right now. I'm gonna ask David to go call 911. I'm hoping that you will step, and I just tell people what I'm doing, because that gives them an opportunity to make choices. And as much as they have choices, it also lets anybody on my team know what's going on. Also, it can be very soothing to hear somebody saying, this is what's happening, is we're doing this, I'm not getting excited, I'm just handling it in this way. If I am uncomfortable, I will say I am uncomfortable. You know, why do I have to step back? Because the person says, why do I have to step back? Well, because I'm uncomfortable. I would like you to let go of my hands now. Because I'm uncomfortable. It's okay, it's really okay to just, own your space, but narrate what's going on so that people do know what's happening. And then the other thing I have is cultivate cooperation. So ask people to cooperate with you, ask them for help. I need you to keep apart 6 feet. Could you help me ensure this stays open by staying 6 feet apart? In order to make everybody else feel safe here, I need you to take the argument outside. I'm asking you to help me. The more you can, just cultivate cooperation, ask for help. When you tell people what to do, there are those of us who are belligerent, who, as soon as we're told what to do, we're just going to push back. Whereas if I'm asking you to help me, it's a lot easier for somebody to say, okay, well, I'm gonna help this person make the situation better. And I have even said, help me make the situation better. Let me know how we can resolve this situation in a calm way. And it really is just asking the person for help, asking the person for help. None of this is our professional level skills, and like I said, feel free to get help if you need it. The ones that are really hard are the people who are, I would say, I call them flailing, where you don't even know what the cause is, but they don't seem able to attend to what they're doing, and they're causing disruption and destruction, but it's not hostility, it's not anger, they're not even really acting out, but they're just, all over the place and knocking stuff down and getting out of line, and, you're like, yeah, the line starts over there, and those for me are the hardest, and those are the ones that you can say, I need you to help me this way. I'm going to walk with you this way. And then those are the people that you have to accompany every step of the way. They take a lot of time. I'm sure you all know this, don't touch anybody without permission. And I mean, right now we can't touch anyway, but if you're in a situation where you had to, you always ask permission. But hold on just a sec. But there are those that we're not going to get in and out by giving them directions.
Also, you can also, people that are around them, enlist their help to help get everyone out of their way.
Right.
Because I've done that also with that.
Because sometimes one of them will start telling the other one, stop touching all the, it's like, I'm going to ask you to let me help them.
Yeah.
And then you just help them through the process, talk and ask for their help, and it's frustrating, but it takes a lot of time. Be really stay calm. Even if you're not calm on the inside, stay calm on the outside. You can freak out later if you need to. Freak out with me, freak out with the rest of the team, whatever. At the time that you're dealing with a difficult situation, stay calm, keep your voice calm, stay aware of your body language. I mean, it's one of those things that we are so sensitive to body language in other people, but aren't always aware of what we're doing. If somebody keeps moving away from us, it might be because they need to move away and we're standing too close. It might be because they feel like we're, even just this, you feel like I'm talking down to you. This, feels aggressive. And these are really small differences. Our face says a lot, and our body just indicates to people what's going on. So get your body to stay calm and give people space, but at the same time, keep your line where it is. Very often people, we learned about this, people who are abusive will only cross the line a little bit to begin with. And then once they get away with that, then they cross it a little more. And then they cross it a little more. Don't get mad that they take everything that they're going to get. Just draw your line and stop. And if you let them get away with it before and you're not going to now, say, I know I've let that go before. I mean, just narrate it. I know I've let that go before, but I'm really going to stop doing that. Be fair. Fair isn't always equal, but be fair. People who are in vulnerable situations are super, super sensitive to that. Be consistent with your message. It is okay to repeat yourself. You don't have to change it up. If you can have one of these, and the person wants to, blah, 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 yeah, you're welcome to have one. Which one of these would you like? Well, that guy got 3. Okay, I'm offering you 1. Which one would you, just repeat yourself. If you need somebody to step back, please step back. Please move on. Please whatever. Say it over and over again. Somebody tries to say, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Ask you questions. You do not have to answer questions just because people ask them. They ask the question, you say, this is what I'm asking you to do. And that's awkward when you first do it, but it's really effective. Because if you don't argue with people, they can argue until they're blue in the face. I don't have to explain to you how that honors Jesus. I might want to get in a theological conversation with you at some other time, but I don't have to explain to you how Jesus will accept that. What would Jesus say about it? Don't have time for that conversation right now. Use I statements. Does everybody know about I statements? I feel this. I need this. I want that. I am going to do this. Not you're scaring me. You're aggressive. You're taking too much. You're making me feel. I feel this way. I feel scared. It's very different from you're making me feel scared. You're scaring me, I'll let that one go if you're scared. But there's a huge difference in terms of the way it's received. You're talking about the same thing, but one of it is I am owning how I am feeling and where my boundaries are. I'm not accusing you. I'm not judging you. I'm making a decision about what is safe for me, what is safe for everybody else here, because I'm sharing that, what is safe for the property. And sometimes that one needs to be practiced, because a lot of us have been told as kids not to use I, not talk about yourself all the time. And so saying I can be uncomfortable. If you know you're somebody who's uncomfortable with that, practice it. And the formula, by the way, I teach this now to kids in conflict resolution. I feel blank when you blank. Please blank. So, I feel put down when you use the word fat. Please talk about me without referencing my body. Or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I feel this, when you this, please do that. Whenever you have an opportunity, and it does take practice, but it's straight up script. Fill in the appropriate words. David, try one. And you can talk to me. It doesn't have to be bad. You can feel great. I'm going to call on everybody else.
I feel the center of attention when you come up to me. Please keep doing that.
Very good, Adam.
This is not
And we're referring this to
This is not good.
what happens downstairs, or
It could be what happened downstairs. It could be anything that talks about a way that you feel when somebody does something and what you would like them to do. So you can do it as imaginary downstairs, or you can say, I feel shy when you call on me, please don't.
Hey, that was what I was amused.
they feel frustrated when you're taking advantage of the situation.
Okay, good. How are you going to make that better? Because you're taking advantage of, again, gives them power. So I feel taken advantage of when you take more than offered,
When you, okay.
Yeah.
when you stay longer than I've asked,
That makes sense.
when you complain about. Can you hear the difference in
I
that?
can hear, yeah, definitely.
Okay, and then please what?
And what?
So then you say, please do this. So please honor our agreement.
You know, please only take what's offered, or.
Good.
Yeah.
That's simple. Brad?
I feel that somebody has made with regards to not allowing enough time to get their work done.
Please, what?
Please help me allow enough time so I can get their work.
Ding, 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 ding. By the way, you feel happy when I'm around you.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay, girl side. Here.
But I actually used this yesterday. I feel uncomfortable with us being so close together. Please, let's do 6 feet.
Okay, now get more specific, because let's, by the way, there are a lot of times where we is useful. Sometimes it feels patronizing,
Okay.
because I know that you're not talking about we, you're talking about me.
Okay, so I feel uncomfortable when you're so close to me. Please let's maintain 6 feet distance.
Ding, 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 ding. Very good. Judy.
I feel like I need help because this bag is getting heavy for me. Would you take it?
Great. I need help when the bag's getting heavy. I feel I need help when the bag's getting heavy. Will you take it? Very good. It's, like I said, it can be awkward, but it makes a huge difference in terms of the way people respond to you. And then the other thing is that I would say acknowledge people when they do good. Everything that they do good. Somebody helps you pick stuff up, thank you. If somebody stays calm in a crisis, you stayed really calm, that was helpful. You tell me right away what things you won't take. Even people who are cranky and won't let you touch their stuff, it's helpful that you make that clear. Whatever is respectful, acknowledge that they're cooperative, because also the population that we work with doesn't get praise or complimented. They get criticized or not, or ignored. So you want to acknowledge the ways that they, actually contribute to the positive in a situation. The last two websites I was going to show you, but can I show? Oh, okay. So this is for further information. National Institute on Drug Abuse. You can learn about addiction in general. You can learn about specific types of addiction, the patterns, the treatments, the signs and symptoms, the likely long-term consequences. Huge amount of information here in terms of drug abuse, emerging drugs. It doesn't give you that immediate visceral thing, but if you kind of, why is the person all going to keep doing this? Why do they keep digging holes in themselves, whatever. You can learn a ton on this and on what potential, what potential outcomes are, treatments, etc. And then the other one is National Institute on Mental Illness, I think. Brad?
Yeah, I'm trying to get the cursor over there so I can look.
So NAMI Juno does a lot of help supporting families and those living with mental illness, but also family members is a lot of focus of NAMI. They do classes and groups. But just if you want to know about particular mental illnesses, he's going to get there in a minute. That's the National Institute on Mental Illness by illness. So it's helpful if you hear about a particular diagnosis and you're like, what's borderline personality? You can look up borderline personality. It's not so that you can diagnose people as having borderline personality, if you're a psychiatrist or a psychologist, more power to you. But it does help you start to understand something about what's going on with people in their head. And there's plenty of other information out there. The reason I refer you to these is kind of like the CDC, is it's one of those approved locations and not, I would just say any other resource you use, check if it's nonprofit or for-profit. There's nothing wrong with an institution being for-profit, but they're going to have their own perspective And it's not that the government ones don't, but I just feel really safe about, did you put the other one up? Yeah.
Yeah.
So National Institute on Mental Health, you know, tab different mental illnesses, treatments available. You can learn about medications. You can just start to understand that nobody chooses this stuff. I mean, any more than I would choose to have heart disease. I'm not going to choose this stuff. There are patterns like, yeah, it tends to show up in your late teens, early 20s, but that's not universal, etc. This just gives you more information.
So with regards to the people that we have the restraining order
The what's? I'm sorry.
on, the restraining order, we have
Uh-huh.
the 2 restraining orders, and it will be done at the end of the month.
Uh-huh.
The interaction was with Adam.
Uh-huh.
Did you suggest that we just take him out of the equation? So if he were to come in, I don't know, we would just not, I mean, Adam should, or should.
No, I would say it depends on, I would let Adam decide with the caveat that these people shame. I mean, because I had a conversation with him where I was like, you did this to Adam when, you know, when this happened. This is, and he's like, yeah, I know, I'm still dealing with that. So I would leave it to you then, Adam, to determine whether or not you can deal with that person fresh. If you'd rather not, then you say, Karen, could you take, you know, this person that I'm not naming right now.
That particular situation is tougher for me.
Huh?
That particular situation is tougher for me, because it was, and I probably take it way too personal, but it was.
Yeah, it was directed at
It was
you.
directed at me as a personal.
You were verbally assaulted.
I was, and way over the line, so I don't know whether it's sensible, but to set, I want to set down, because it has been that reset thing, he cannot come in here, but he still comes in, and this person still comes in, and this person will, if you give him an inch, he'll take him up.
It is true. It is true. And so go back to the, don't judge them for it. It just is. Set your boundaries. And if the rest of us violate your boundaries, then you say, there's a restraining, like you told me, there's a restraining order. And I didn't even think about the dates on it.
And
So-
sometimes that's what I feel, that it's not, that I'm not, that it's not being,
You're not being a weenie. Or,
Yeah.
well, I'm sorry, whatever is.
no, but it's not being, trying to feel the word, but
Well,
it's not being honored maybe, it's
Yeah.
not, you know.
Well, and we can trespass, whether there's a restraining order or not, we can trespass people out of our program. And so we can just.
Right, but we're talking about the next step. I personally don't believe in forever, getting rid of a person forever.
Well, and like I said, it's at the end of the month.
So
I don't know.
what I would do, if you're still feeling like,
He should be going out.
you're saying, I want this person not to be here. Think about or talk to me about, why is that? Because we are, I mean, we're a faith of multiple chances, and you don't have to forgive them before you're ready. Don't deny what you're really feeling. If you are feeling dishonored because we're not supporting you or something like that, that is, you know, you're feeling that, and so we got to figure out, hey, how do we make sure that you're feeling honored, and how do we make sure that as Christians we're saying, you know, we take people as they come, and as long as they don't cross this boundary, okay, we're start in the same way that if somebody if somebody in the congregation embezzles, let's say that, you know, a treasurer embezzles from a church, you don't ban them from that church after they serve their time. You just won't make them a treasurer again, right? And that's true of any of us. We are all broken. So you say, first of all, you know, how do I make sure that I'm feeling honored? And again, it's okay to tell me. In fact, it's necessary to tell me. In order to feel honored, I need us to honor this restraining order. The second I experience him acting out. I need this to be the response. I need other people to handle him. But I also acknowledge that as a Christian organization, we are not going to permanently exclude somebody, and especially people who are in these situations where they change from day to day, week to week. What is required of that person for you? And now, maybe he'll apologize to you, maybe he won't. If that's helpful for you, I mean, sometimes you're like, I just don't even want to go there. But sometimes it would be helpful. In which case, it's okay to say, I would feel a lot better if you apologize to me. It's not a matter of I'm not giving you food, but I'm going to be really strict with my boundaries with you. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be strict with my boundaries. Here's what I'm offering. I am angry because I felt ignored when you told me the pastor said something. Is what the pastor said. I would be surprised if the pastor said that last time to her. And if I did say it, I mean, I'll tell you whether I said it or not. If I did say it, then later you tell me I felt dishonored. And if I didn't say it, then you say to him, I feel angry. If you tell me the pastor said something that she didn't say, or I feel manipulated, or I feel whatever, I am less inclined to deal with you. Again, we're not going to teach people, we're not going to get them to change. What we do is we set our boundaries. Is that responsive?
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't seen it for a while, so I don't even know.
It just 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, but there was.
Yeah, and I let him in. And I what I did is I acknowledged it was him, recognized him. I told him he was doing a lot better, and whatever. And so he took that and told Adam that I said he would come in. Yeah, which my bad. I'm not even, like I said, not honoring the restraining order, and of course him on not telling the truth. But we're not going to get him to become honest. So what is it that we are going to do? And then let it go. It's not about you. It's not, what he did to you was about you. But his brokenness isn't about you. So you gotta figure out how do I not get all about it. That's my language for, those people who just get under your skin and just, literally you can feel your skin being, just vibrating, because it's just, ugh. And then you just, we'll get through it, or let somebody else do it. Any other comments, questions?
Well, we're asking a person to leave when they obviously, it's to the point they have to leave because they're disruptive or whatever, making people uncomfortable. I know, I try to be just gentle about it. You need to leave now. I don't think I've ever told anybody to make anybody uncomfortable. But is it just, that's the best way, just to be calm about it and say, okay?
Calm about it. It's time for you to leave. I'm asking you to leave now. You don't have to explain it.
Right.
I would like for other people to be able to use this space, if that's true. I would like for other people to be able to use this space. I'm asking you to leave. And then you physically put your body, as they start to move closer to the door, you put yourself in between the door and wherever it is that they want to be. Not right up next to them, but you just, and I do that physically too. If I know two people are having, there's tension brewing between them, obviously they're going to go at each other and get out of the way.
Right.
But anything that you can do to make it physically clear that this space is now closed to you, I'm going to walk behind you as you go this way.
Yeah.
And then they want to go sideways and start, I gotta get you, you really need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're past the time that you can say, gotta get you to go. And you just, and obviously if they refuse, that's a different question. But it's best to repeat yourself and be consistent, and once you draw a line, keep it. I don't care how bad they gotta pee. If they had to pee, they would have peed by now,
Right.
or whatever. Anything else?
Do you feel safe? You're by yourself.
Oh, I feel perfectly safe. But see, that's the thing, they come in and the first thing is, either I know their name or I ask them their name and I say their name and then we just kind of talk. No, I haven't felt any,
Plus, you could pick them up and throw them out.
that's true. But I do have my exits. I'm not crazy, so I've got that table.
Right.
And if they're on one side of the table, I've got the exit and I'm out the door. Or if they're on the other side of the table, I've got the exit
Back in
between
the
the
hall.
table and the food table, and I can go out that way.
But
So-
it's a little bit of distance for you to holler for David or.
Oh, you've never heard me holler on a football field, Judy?
I've been on my
Oh, and the other thing is, do not underestimate the power of a smile and a
Yeah.
pleasant
Well, see,
voice.
and you can't smile now, but
Right.
that's what I say, I tell them, I got a smile under
Right.
this, and
Well,
then you talk.
See, with this
And
kind
I-
of mask, they can tell you're smiling.
I may have told you this story, but I'm going to tell it again because it was powerful for me. In Hawaii, almost no guns. People kill each other with their fists, with machetes, or
Funny story.
And
Funny story.
the area that we lived was minority Anglo, primarily local, which is some combination usually of Hawaiian, Samoan, Tongan. Now, I don't know if you know, Samoans and Tongans, not petite people.
No.
A lot of football players come out of that. And there's a different culture in terms of what we fight over and expectations. Tremendous hostility towards Anglos
Yeah.
because they have been historically just absolutely their property, their birthright, their respect and honor, literally stolen. And then foment. Just, the what do you call it, the plantation owners purposely stirred up ethnic rivalries and whatnot.
Were they Mormon?
There were Mormons, but not as many as on the North Shore.
Because almost all of them here are Mormon.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there was huge Mormon, well, the Plumbing and Cultural Center is all run by Mormons.
Oh, I didn't know
And so,
that.
yeah, I mean,
I didn't know that.
oh yeah, plenty of Mormons.
Oh, I didn't know
But also, I mean, but huge respect for religious leaders.
Mhm.
And so I got kind of tremendous amount of slack. So we were across the street from the high school, literally across the street from the high school that competed for worst school in Hawaii every year with the school that was the next closest to us. And Hawaii, educationally, is the 58th state in the, I don't know if it still is, was the 58th state in the union. So we're talking about a really bad school. Right across the street, people use the church parking lot, to drop off and pick up their kids. And one of the things that we did is on Friday afternoons, we would bring juice and snacks that were donated and give them out to people, because if you fight on the school campus, you get suspended. If you fight on the church property, maybe you get hurt, maybe you don't. So people would schedule fights at the church. In fact, somebody challenged my daughter to a fight. And she said, "You mean at the church?" Oh, because it said at the church. She said, "You mean the church across the street?" "Yeah." "You mean the church where my mother is a pastor?"
The pastor.
We don't go there. Yeah, so people would schedule fights and very often on Friday, so there was a weekend, or before spring break or something like that. So anyway, and the security guards on the campus didn't want anything to do with what was going on at the church, because that was more trouble than they had interest. So anyway, but a lot of times it was just people getting in and out of cars, and so we would walk around and give them juice and snacks, and someone would be like, "For free? Really? You're just giving me a cold drink?" And just like, "Okay."
And food in that culture was tremendous, was a
Oh,
very nice thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Giving
the.
free food was a big deal.
Yeah.
And you know, it was a similar interaction where I'm just offering you, if you would like some. So anyway, one time I didn't notice at first that there were these two groups, you know, posturing, but they weren't gonna fight while I was there because I'm a religious leader and an auntie. You know, older women have all the power in Hawaii, and I mean in local culture. So at first it took me a while to notice. And then when I get my fresh tray, it's like, Brad, could you call the cops, please? Because there's something about to go on here. And they would kill each other. I mean, a friend of ours was injured trying to keep a couple people from killing, literally throwing a student off the upper level. So it's not like we're, it was incidental. So like, I can just look, and I just kept walking up to them and smiling and, like some juice. Like some candy, and they're waiting for me to go, I'm not facing it. I don't think so. Are hugely polite to me. You could tell, they were just like, could you please leave so that they could fight?
There was
And
actually 2 girls
Yeah.
that were
I
scheduled
know.
for this fight.
but they had their crowds. So, and the cops were not interested in us because we were the bad area. So it was taking forever for the cops to get there. I just, for well over a half an hour, walking around, going, so you want some juice? They already told me no many times, but they weren't going to fight one. And then another auntie came and started yelling at them and said, you guys get out of here, and broke it up. However, I told Brad, if something goes down, I'm going to drop my tray and run. So what are my plans if it can't be handled? But the fact of the matter is just being physically polite and pretending like I wasn't stressed at all, prevented them. I mean, they might have killed each other somewhere else, but prevented them from. It was just really funny. But then I use that to illustrate. Don't underestimate the value of being calm and pleasant.
We also have walkie-talkies, I mean, you can see that.
Oh, yeah.
We have walkie-talkies too, not that it was there. At St. Vincent, I don't think we need them here, we have panic buttons around the place that would, when you pushed one, it rang everywhere else, and so that meant come
Right.
to wherever the panic button was hit,
Yeah.
and to do that. But we're pretty small here.
Yeah.
We do that.
Oh, which reminds me, our Narcan's getting, Claire from Bartlett is going to bring me some new ones tomorrow.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't feel unsafe. And so, I just kind of wanted to have this training so that we could talk about how to deal with the behaviors, because they're gonna keep coming and we want to serve them. And,
And I would say directly, the times that I have walked away knowing that I handled something wrong is when I pretended that it was something else or pretended that there wasn't a problem or, whatever.
yeah.
It's really okay to be direct. And it works a lot better than coming up with an excuse. I don't have any money. Hey, if you want to say I don't have any money, say I don't have any money. But I say I'm not going to give you any money. No. And directness just is it's like I said, it's really okay. It just takes practice.
Then there's 2 other trainings that come to town now and then that we'll try to get into. One is the mental health first aid class. That's 1 day long. That's fantastic.
Okay.
I never got to go. I keep missing it.
Really?
Where we are. You got to do it once, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I used to teach the suicide first aid class.
Right, and that's a good one too. And the other one, which was like one of the best things I've been to in years, was the guy that came in and did the de-escalation class at Bartlett.
Oh yeah, that was
And
fabulous.
they did it twice over 2 days, and so we'll keep our ears and eyes open for that one and try to get to that, because we're certainly on the front lines of that.
Yeah, and we could probably get somebody like Rasmussen to pay for it for us.
Yeah,
Or something like
it was scholarship for almost everybody
Yeah.
who wanted to go last time, but it was just fantastic. I mean, we're exactly the right people to go take that class on how to do de-escalation. It was great.
So now I've gone almost a half an hour past when I was supposed to let you out.
okay.
So shall we close with, see, I violated our boundaries.
Uh-oh.
Please forgive me. Shall we close with the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever.
What a
Thank you.
good boy.
Oh, yeah.
I just stood here with my hand like this, and I'm holding his baby while we said the Lord's Prayer.
Oh,
And he
wow.
didn't jump or anything. What a good boy.
I didn't realize how much a baby looks like him.